Okay, so picture this. It's the first day of school. Your kid walks in and their phone gets zipped into a pouch like it's evidence at a crime scene. Today, we're talking about the phone free school movement that's sweeping the country and what these rules actually mean for your family and how your state's approach might be completely different from the state next door. One of the fastest moving bipartisan issues in state government right now. And there's a lot of confusion around what it means and especially what it means for our kids. So let's recap what's going on. I live in Utah. Utah's Senate Bill 69 is the bell to bell law, meaning phones are restricted for the entire school day, not just class time like the old rule. So last year, when my son was in high school, they had a law that you could not have your cell phones out during instruction time. And that was the key to that. So if at the end of class, there was still time left in the class and there was no more teaching going on, the kids could take out their phone. They could have it out during lunch. They could have it out during their passing time. So they really were able to use their phone quite a bit, even though there was a restriction of phones in school. Well, this coming year, it is completely different. It is a bell-to-bell ban, meaning that from the time school starts to the time school ends, they are completely restricted from their phones. So, for example, last year it would be like no phones at the dinner table. And this year it's going to be more like no phones from the time you walk in the house until the time you leave the house. That's the difference in the laws this year. Now, the example I gave about kids placing their devices in what can really be only classified as an evidence pouch is not a requirement of this new Utah law and many other similar laws in other states. But it is one way that school districts are attempting to enforce this law. So enforcement can seriously vary, not only from district to district, but from school to school within that same district as well. So the biggest question that adults ask when these types of laws go into place is what happens in an emergency? How am I going to be able to communicate with my child? How can my child communicate with me and let me know they're okay? Schools have spelled out specifically that kids can use landlines in offices and maybe even the classrooms to get a hold of somebody in case of an emergency. I mean, back in my day, that's just how it worked. Or, you had to use the pay phone at school. If a brand new phone ban is coming to a school near you, make sure you sit down with your kids this week and have a talk with them about how it's going to work for their school and what you will do in case of an emergency. So since I live in Utah and my kid goes to public school in Utah, this absolutely is something we are dealing with right now. But how is it spreading across the country? And what do I think about the ban? Let's get into it a little deeper. So the big picture is that roughly 26 states now have some kind of mandated school cell phone policy, and 22 of those laws were passed in just the last couple years. So this really has moved fast. So the strictest here, the bell-to-bell bans, the same one that Utah is putting into place this coming school year, New York, so Governor Hochul, I believe, made it the largest state to require bell-to-bell restrictions for this coming school year. And then Florida actually is the trendsetter of this whole movement. Florida was the first state to legislate a classroom phone ban back in 2023, and it passed both chambers unanimously. Louisiana goes even further on paper, bans both use and possession of a phone during the school day. If a phone comes on campus, it has to be off and stored away. Texas, Virginia, Alabama, Nebraska, these are all the states that are in this strict group, bell to bell, with Utah. Now, like I said, last year, Utah was on a little more of a lax law, and that's what some of these next states have. So they'll limit it, but don't fully ban it. We've got Arizona restricts phone use during the school day, but carves out exceptions for educational and medical use. In California, Phone Free School Act requires every district to adopt some limiting or prohibiting policy by July 2026, but leaves the specifics up to each school district. And Ohio has a similar approach. Every district writes its own policies rather than following a statewide rule. So a district level example, even without a state mandate, Los Angeles Unified, one of the biggest school districts in the country, voted to ban social media access for the entire school day ahead of any state requirement. So if you got any family or friends in other states comparing notes, this is why everyone's experience sounds a little different right now. Some states are all-day bans, some are class time only, some are leaving it entirely up to the school district, some don't have any rules in place at all yet. So a fun stat for context, public support of these bans has grown fast. 75% of US adults now back banning phones during class, up from just 68% the year before. And we're going to get into what I think about the bans a little bit later. But let's talk about what you need to be talking about with your family and kind of the conversations that you should have with your kids before they are surprised on day one of class coming up very soon. So first, don't wait for the school to explain it. Ask first. So check the school's website, the district's website for exactly how enforcement works and how emergency contact happens. Every district's doing this slightly different right now. So, and again, maybe even the school's doing it slightly different. So give your school a call, find out, look at their website, find out what exactly your school is doing to enforce a school phone policy. And then you're going to have a conversation with your kids. So kids mirror parent anxiety. So if you're freaking out about the fact that they're not going to have their phone, what am I going to do in a case of an emergency? Your kid is going to see that and freak out as well. So a simple reframe works wonders. So you're not losing your phone completely. It's just taking a nap for the day. So, and then set a genuine backup plan. Like a family code works for real emergencies. I've talked about the family codes that we used to have as kids, where if somebody is coming to pick me up, in case it's not my family, they should have a password that they know so that they can pick me up. Well, with AI and everything like that, I'm actually recommending that as something you can use for your grandparents, for your aging parents, as a way to help them determine whether you are an AI voice asking them for money or it's really you asking them. So kind of like we used to do back in the 80s and 90s, we have a family code word. We're also going to take something else we used to do in the 80s and 90s, and that is come up with a plan for where you will meet. Walk around the school, pick a specific spot, like across the street or down the street. This is where we are going to meet in case of an emergency. So if you're evacuated from the school or something like that, this is where we will be. So whenever you're able to get away or anything like that, come to this spot and pick that spot ahead of time, just like we did in the 80s and 90s. So, and even if you do talk to your school district, you might want to follow up right before school starts because a lot of schools are still finalizing these details, and it's worth checking back with your school before the first week just in case anything has changed. Let's get into my thoughts about what I think about these school phone bans. I had an interview on my podcast. You can look through my past episodes for the interview with Amy Winder Newton, who is the director of the Office of Families for Utah's Governor Cox. During that interview, I was pretty critical of the proposed legislation for government-mandated parental controls, is what I felt it was, on kids' social media use. During that conversation, I said that one place where the government wouldn't be overstepping would be to limit phones in schools. Last year, restrictions were limited to just during class time, and they could still use their phone during lunch, during passing periods. So this takes a much stronger stance by banning the phones during the entire day. And while I'm definitely in support of this, since I think phones can be a huge distraction in school, I am concerned with how well it is going to be implemented. Before we had these cell phone bans and before my kids were teenagers with cell phones in class, I would text my niece or my nephew and they would respond right away. And I'm like, aren't you in class? They're like, yeah, it's fine. But it was surprising to me how much they were able to use their phone when they were in class. So I think this is a really good step in the right direction for kids to be able to concentrate during class, not get distracted, and really be able to learn while they're in class. So back to the implementation that I am concerned about. So we're going to revisit those evidence pouches envelopes again. Yonder is the company that is producing these pouches. They basically put the phone inside the pouch. It closes magnetically. The phone stays with the child all day, but they can't access the device until the end of the day when they tap it to release it from its magnetic hold. So my kids' high school has been implementing some type of lockers for kids who are violating the no phone in class. Like they didn't have every student put them in these lockers, but whenever a kid would get in trouble and would get their phone taken away, it would go in these lockers. Well, kids are really smart and they will find all the ways they can to break into these lockers. So my friend, she works in the office at the high school and said kids would run over the little lockers so that it would break the lock and they can get their phone out. So, I mean, they're really smart of how they can just kind of circumvent these things. A couple school districts in Utah have already implemented the Yonder pouches, and there were many things the kids were doing to circumvent this control. So they would bring a crappy phone that is sitting around. So, you upgrade your phone, you have your old phone sitting around the house somewhere. They'd bring that old phone and lock that up in the envelope so they had their real phone ready to go anytime. There was all sorts of ways they were kind of tricking the envelopes into having their phone in there when it really wasn't. So obviously the solutions aren't perfect, and it's hard to say what is going to work and what is not going to work. But I'm just glad that the states and schools are at least trying to curb the problem that has gotten so out of hand. Like I said, I was able to message my nieces and nephews all during the school day, and I was shocked that that was a possibility until my kids are in school, and it just seems like they're on their phone literally all day. So I am in support of these bans. I think, emergencies are few and far between. As long as you've got a plan in place with your kid, what they're going to do, what phone they're going to use at the office or going across the street, where we're going to meet in case of an emergency. Have all of those plans put in place now. Talk to your kid now about it so that the first day of school, not a huge surprise. So like I said, phone-free schools are having a real moment across the country. And the families doing it best are the ones treating it as a mindset shift, not a rule or restriction. It's not something that you can just say, all the kids in schools' phones are going to be put away, so you're not going to be left out because you don't have your phone. So just making sure we're resetting our mind that this is a good thing, that you're going to be able to concentrate so much better in class, and it's going to really help the whole level of education climb, I believe. So if your family's navigating this right now, I want to hear about it. Come find me in the comments. What is your school doing in order to kind of enforce this rule? And do you wish your school or your state or your district would set something like this in place if you don't have something? Or are you totally against it? Let me just know all of that in the comments. So if you like your content with a little less fear and more empowerment, that's what I do here at Family Tech. So make sure you are subscribed so we can drown out the fear and help families really feel like they have a handle on all this tech stuff. So until next time, Family Tech powering down.